solving the problems of the world, one or on this episode, 3 or 4 or 10 weekly whiskeys at a time. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. This is Implicit Bias Radio. And let me tell you, we've got a great crew for you here in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair. Let me start at the bar. I'm just going to move and walk by. They can actually wave as we do a drive-by introduction. In the white jacket, he is the executive chef at Mr. Lester Steakhouse at Cypress Bayou Casino, food and beverage manager as well, Chef Willie Gaspard. Chef, you can just wave and say hi. No need to talk. I don't want to hear from you. And then there's Kathleen Theriault, the real deal right next to him. See, Kathleen understands the instructions. And then, of course, in the chair like mine, he is the rustic renegade Caleb Morse. And I'm sorry, but we've also got Walker on camera. So don't wave, Walker. God, he did it again. You know what? Napoleon Dynamite, you can just keep waving. All right, so let's dive into solving the problems of the world one weekly whiskey at a time. Now we can talk. I wanted to get through that quickly because we've got to get some things done. The first thing we have to do is we actually have to play What Would You Pay for the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain presented by Box Drop. Now, we're playing What Would You Pay for this. I believe it's 5.5 years old, Caleb. Is that the age statement on the side of this one?
5 years, 4 months.
5 years, 4 months. Okay, so I'm pretty close. 5 years, 4 months in the barrel. An absolute blue. Some of this will go into Deep Blue, the Implicit Bias Infinity bottle, which you see on the bar, because it is high enough proof and it is rated as a blue. But the question is, what would you pay? Walker, what would you pay for what's in this bottle?
$65.
$65. Oh, Caleb seems upset. Don't care. All right, let's go to the bar. Kathleen, the microphone's pointed at you. Where would you start?
$87.
$87. Wow, that is high esteem from Miss Kathleen, the real deal Theriault. Chef, not wholesale. I know you get all your stuff like dirt cheap because you're buying it wholesale.
Right. But
Yeah.
I would have went higher than them. 117.
One set. Wow. So you're going $1 per proof point. I can't believe I actually got that out with a tumbling all over myself
Good job,
verbally.
though.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, Caleb, where do you go?
So before Walker opened his gullet, $67.82 is what I wrote.
$67.82. So, okay. We may have to adjust some rules specifically for this episode for one reason. Because this is a $69.99 bottle of whiskey, which means that the winner is Caleb Morse. But Caleb Morse is recovering from surgery, which a lot of people don't know.
Oh, that's a valid point. I don't know if I can wear
And
this.
I don't know if you can actually put that over your neck. Because the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain by Box Drop weighs about 297 pounds.
You have a,
right?
it'll hang right on my wounds, too.
Yes, I know it would, and that's why I'm like,
I will
I don't
concede.
know.
I will.
Okay, Walker wins. $65 goes to Walker, and we're going to pawn this across to Walker. The
I can't
Box
pass
Drop.
it very far.
Oh, come on, you can't reach.
No, I can't pull it out very far.
I got it. There you go. Caleb passes it over to Walker. Walker's going to wear the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain, and actually we get to watch him. So, fun game. You should play, if you're watching out there on Insta, on Facebook, on X, on YouTube, you should play the over-under on when Walker wants to cave and take it off. Because the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain presented by Box Drop is not light. I'm just saying. Okay, so let's dive into the problems of the world that we are solving one weekly whiskey at a time.
Can I ask real quick?
Yeah.
Can you explain this that's sitting in front of me?
Oh, the infinity bottle. Okay, so an
Deep
infinity bottle.
blue.
Now, not everybody has an infinity bottle.
Do you know what
And-
an infinity bottle is?
Well, that's where
Well,
I'm.
no, that's why I'm asking.
that's what I'm about to
I mean,
explain.
it's sitting
Yeah.
right in front of me, so I was going to ask to try it, but I don't know what it is.
So an infinity bottle is a bottle that you keep where you blend the best stuff you have, the little leftovers that don't make up a full pour. It's not enough, and you keep adding to it. So, for example, the wife and I, she actually gave me one as a present, and it's beautiful. It's exactly like that. It is the Waterford lead-free crystal, came from William S. Nacall Jewelers, just like that one. And what my wife did that made it really special was we were given a decanter for our wedding, and it had the silver nameplate to be engraved on that decanter. She took it to Nacall's, had him engrave it. So we have that with our last name on it. It's the Bordelon's, right, infinity bottle. And we take the ones that we find are special and we blend them in there. So that, why we call it deep blue, is because in order for a bottle to get into that, our infinity bottle, it has to be rated a blue. And it has to be higher proof. It's got to be over 100.
So when are you going to drink that? Or when do you try that?
Well, we take sips out of it on special occasions.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, when we did our live show for the 2024 election, special occasion, everybody gets a pour.
Ah, okay.
So the bottle never runs out, which is the really cool thing. That's why it's
An
called
infinity bottle. Ah,
2
I
plus
got it.
2
I
plus 2,
got it.
right? You got it,
I got it.
right? You're not on Common Core math. You actually can do math. I love it.
I got it.
All
Cool.
right.
Okay, thanks.
So that is the Infinity Bottle. Walker's got the What Would You Pay Championship Belt chain presented by Box Drop. And we are going to dive into the stories. And let's face it, it's the big one. And between the time that we record this show and when this show airs, there's going to be more. There's not a lot of planks that I will walk out on and attempt to predict the future. But the fact that we have seen what we have seen exposed by this administration with regards to government spending, I'm willing to walk out on the very tip of that diving board and say, I think there's going to be a lot more coming. I think there's going to be so much more.
Well, we're what, 10 days, 2 weeks in. And
Dear Lord. I mean, when you think, it's just that short and it feels like it's been a year.
we're what, 2 billion saved? 2 billion cut?
I given the last couple of days, it might even be more than that. Kathleen?
I thought it said 40 billion. That article that you sent us.
Oh,
Oh, there's
I should read those.
there's all kinds of numbers. I think what Caleb was looking at was what Elon Musk was referencing. And,
Oh.
hey, we
Everything
have
else.
already trimmed
Yeah.
this
Oh, okay,
much
yeah.
off the budget. And now all of a sudden, we are getting exposure on everything that the last president was doing. And trust me, you
Well-
don't want him to expose himself.
It's more than
Then again,
just,
maybe he's done it a few times already.
It's
Anyway,
more than
Caleb.
just the last president, too, because a lot of this stuff
It
is
is.
systemic, right? And you get in there and they try to undo things, they try to change things, and other people try to feed into the system because it goes back to whenever the election was going and there was, I don't remember the number, we'll call it 12, I think it was like $12 billion or something. Might have been $2 billion, I don't remember. It was a bubba. spent on the election, presidential, Congress, Senate, whenever their income is like altogether $3 million.
I think what you had, the
So-
number, because you pulled the number
I had
during the night of the election, I think it was 15 billion.
That
If
might
I
have
remember
been it,
right.
yeah.
It was a big,
it was something astronomical
number.
and it was like 1,000% more than the income of these individuals during their whole tenure.
here's the one, and we're going to have to kind of dissect some of these things in chunks because it's moving so fast. We're losing some of the really important stuff. Here's a big one. We are now finding out that people who were saying that Anthony Fauci funded the creation of COVID-19, y'all have a bell up there on the bar. You should have a bell. Ring the out of that bell. Ring it again. And yes, the conspiracy theorists were right.
Was it 19 million?
Oh, it was way more than that. The NIH, which was run by Fauci, we now have, and please, whatever you do, please don't believe us on this. Go look this up. Because the sourcing that we have is as good as we can get. And we might be wrong. I'm not going to say that we're 100% right. But what I'm going to say is we've looked at this sourcing pretty well, and it appears to be good. The NIH, which was run by Fauci, was funding a company called EcoHealth. EcoHealth was directly funding the guy who just so happened to be doing bat coronavirus research in a lab in Wuhan, China.
China.
Yes, China. Yeah, absolutely. Also, the WHO was funding him, which was also funded by Anthony Fauci.
How
I mean-
how do we get on this bandwagon? Like, why aren't they funding us?
Well,
We
that's
can make a difference.
you know what? We're okay. You're starting to tease where we're going to go an hour too because we've got enough time. But we have made predictions on this show. And I feel bad because we don't like to say, I told you so. But unfortunately, the more we see, the more we're having to say, this was out there. You could find this. This was available. This was ready. We're going to talk more about the media being funded later in the show. Because that also, right? How do you get on this loop? We get to talk about this because we weren't. And that's kind of obvious because we don't have 400 million followers. But that's okay. One day, the entire planet of Uranus will be following us, and that'll be fine. All right, so let's go to the bar.
I like what you did there.
I figured you would. My wife's going to be upset with me again. Anyway, let's go to the bar. I'm curious about your initial reactions to what we have seen so far with regards to government spending and all the stuff that you, our listener, us here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast lair, even Walker, because Walker works his tail off, we all been paying for. What do y'all think?
Go?
Well, Kathleen, the mic's pointed at you.
Okay. Well, I didn't even know that this USAID even existed until
A lot of people didn't.
I didn't know.
But it's not the only portion of the government funding a lot of this stuff.
But some of this stuff, Sesame Street for
Oh,
Iraq
the 20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq.
or pottery classes.
Yeah. I mean, look.
I just what is $2 million for pottery classes?
Hold on. Have you ever seen Ghost?
Oh my
That's
god!
going
crazy.
there. I knew he was
Yes.
going
Like,
there.
I've wanted that. Not to be a dead, but I've wanted that moment where I sit there and my wife and I do pottery. And
Yeah,
then
but
it
$2
leads
million.
to
What are you making for $2 million? That better be a
a nice vase.
dang good vase. Really, that's what you're making? Okay.
Anyway, all right.
Anyway,
But yeah, when you look at some of the little things, and this is the sad part, $20 million for what these people have been doling out, it's
That's a
little
drop in the bucket.
thing.
correct.
That's almost nothing. It's a rounding error for this budget.
And look,
That's insane.
it's not Iraqi Sesame Street.
What is it then?
Alan Sim.
Oh my god.
It's Iraqi Sesame Street.
Yeah, it's Iraqi Sesame.
I was
It's-
thinking about the sex changes in Guatemala.
It's
Well,
age
and that's
appropriate.
just I mean,
Age appropriate sock puppets for Middle Easters. And then we have condom education, which is very
Yeah,
important.
well, there's another one.
Because of it was 50 million on educating people
So-
how to use
so
condoms.
let's-
and now we have condom born IEDs, which are a separate thing.
Oh, I don't even want to think about that. Chef, let's bring you
Sorry.
in. I'm just curious
I
as to your
digress.
thoughts on this, Chef.
I don't understand why we have to help everyone. No one helps us, and most countries don't even like us.
This is true.
I've been around the world, and they don't really like us. So why do we help them? If I don't like someone, I don't help them.
So
You know?
I love the question because it allows us to discuss the argument about why the 5-year-olds who are in the corner crying about this are upset. Because the politicians will tell you this was the money that we used internationally to promote American values.
They still don't like us.
No.
Number one, they still don't like us. Number two, so what you're telling me is this is the CIA slush fund. Because let's talk about what USAID really is. It is not US aid.
No.
Not at all. It is the U.S. agency for, and I love this ambiguous term, international development. So what you're telling me is that when you think about everybody who's involved in CIA work, they got to get paid. How does the CIA leverage people? It's one of two ways, either the carrot or the stick. And I'm going to give Walker the stick in a minute because he just gave me the finger from the corner and it's the 1 minute finger and we don't have enough time to get into this. Walker. All right. We'll come back. We'll round out hour 1 of Implicit Bias Radio. Hour 2 is always more fun. And we will dive into how intelligence uses the stick or the carrot and how that might be tied in to the USAID scandal on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio.